Thanks for the intro, Alex, and thanks for having me. I'm, like I said, Anash. That's what people call me for a short name. I was telling Alex, when people who actually reach out to me the name of Anashwar, that means they don't know me because nobody calls me Anashwar. So a little bit of myself. I moved 10 years ago to Canada as an international student. I did my master's here, and I did work in aerospace for a good amount of my life as an engineer. And like I said, you guys must be wondering what I'm an engineer or engineers doing in real estate. It's just, it started by helping a few people while I was doing my job. And especially during COVID, I actually ended up helping a lot of people. Within a couple of months, it came to about 1,000 people. And then actually during the entire COVID, I actually helped people like moving to this country, helping them settle up. It's about 3,000 people that we helped during that time. And with all those people that we helped up, they actually started asking me after, now where do I find a rental? How is it helping? How, because they don't have no contacts here, right? So from there, what I did is while I was doing a full-time job, I looked up how I can provide the supply for those people. And then it's so hard to connect landlords, and because there's communication. By the time I set up a landlord, this guy goes away and then comes in. So I thought, why can I not be a supply? So I looked up what are the things to be done for becoming a property manager. So I set up a property management company for myself while I was doing my full-time job. So I usually had an 18 hours job pretty much. And I grew to a portfolio of having about 40 properties at one point. And that is when I got the idea about what Haletale is. I'm going to talk a little bit more about Haletale soon. But before that, just to give you a little bit of stats, which most of you might already know, that is that, if you look at, as per the latest report, there's over 1.3 million empty houses in Canada, just in Canada. And just in Toronto, 5.5% of the houses that we have here is empty. Some of it is vacation rentals, that's there, but these are still empty houses, right? And another side, there's about 33% of the entire Canadians rent, or they are renting the household, right? And an average time a person take to find a rental is about 4.5 weeks. And it's even worse when it comes to someone like a newcomer or international student. I myself can vouch for it because I was there. When it comes to a newcomer, they take about 6 to 8 weeks to find a house. And during my initial years here, I think I've spent about 2 months in Airbnb, which took a big chunk of my limited budget that I had. And I know that was 10 years ago. Today, we're still talking about the same story, which kind of is really bad, right? So, as we know, we're on the other side, what I'm trying to say is that there's a huge demand on renters that's coming up. And then there's number of homeowners, the ratio is actually going far apart. There's not enough houses or homeowners to support the amount of renters here. On the other side, we're expecting to have over 1.5 million people to come to this country by end of this year. And there's a 31% increase in this rate every single year. Or in other words, Canada is expecting to have about 50 million people as population by 2030. Right now we're at 38, and we're expecting to have 50 million. And then this is creating a huge amount of demand for affordable houses, affordable living, and a decent affordable housing for people. And which is when I started thinking about what is the way to come around it. And we started thinking into co-living. So I want to tell you what a co-living is. Like, I can tell you in the most simple words, not as per what you see in Google. It's essentially having different diverse people under one roof and how they can start living as a family. And that's essentially, it's the new family community building thing it is. So there's different approaches, different advantages in co-living too. Like, it's expected, or co-living it's not big in Canada yet, but outside it's set to be having a $15 billion business in the next 3 years. Countries like India, China, Singapore, Mexico, US are going big in this, and Canada is still catching up with that. We're not talking enough here because that's the way that people are actually helping people get settled in. And it also, there's different approaches. There's one is that you're diversifying your risk. That means you're having different portfolio of people in your house. That means you have students, you have working professionals, you have couples, you have all kind of people. So you're diversifying the kind of tenants that you have there, and you're bringing them together as one family. And as a landlord is also helping, it's benefiting you as well, because I would explain this in an example of pizza, for example. Like, consider your house as a pizza pie, right? You're buying an entire pizza for, let's say, $20. That's what you give it for. But if you start giving it slices, what is happening? Everyone on the other side is enjoying the same pizza and the same taste, but you are selling that slice for $5, for example. And not everyone requires a pie. So how does that work? Your end of the day, you're making more money, you're giving what people are looking for, and everyone's happy there. That's essentially the simplest way to explain this concept, right? And the good thing is that the regulatory for this particular thing is going. The city of Toronto, for example, is actually working towards to bring this actually into a process because they understand that understand. And we're one of the companies who are going to be working with City of Toronto. We're actually having discussions to work with City of Toronto for this pilot projects which go in different areas of Toronto. Because next year, in March of 2024, they are actually having rooming houses as a legal process, and we're going to be working with as well how we can implement this in single family houses. That's essentially where we're going. So I just want to give you a flavor of where we're heading to and what the opportunity is coming up here. Which brings me to talk about what Haletale is. What essentially we're doing is we're a co-living platform. We're a marketplace in the front which allows people to have easy or flexible housing, but we're just not a marketplace. We're a tech-enabled end-to-end solution. That means we provide people for a house in the front and the back end. We're a management software for people like house owners or property managers, realtors, agents, anyone who can manage these people inside the houses. How efficiently we can have these people inside the house and make, like I said, communication. It's a key part, and that's what it really affects. Most of the problems are coming from there. When a tenant thinks that you don't care about what's going on in the house and you don't care about the people who's paying you rent, that's the key problem that we identified. Because since I was a property manager, I've identified myself this because they don't understand. On a tenant, a landlord does a lot of things on the side, and they do care about the tenants, but sometimes they don't reply to the message right away, or sometimes they can't answer the call at time. But the tenant sees it in a different way. Oh, he doesn't care about us. Okay, I should have paid rent on time. He doesn't. That's how it started, and then it gets worse, and then we get into all these problems like eviction, all these things, which starts in very silly things, and how we can effectively avoid these things and have a regulated task inside the house, an easy environment. That's actually what we're trying to achieve here. I'll tell you some of the observations that we see here. Since we have property managers and landlords using our software for this, we see 94% of the people actually started paying rent on time because we have rent reminders. It's a thing for tenants that we have to remind them, saying that there's a rent is due, and although it's in the paperwork, you have to tell them, yeah, rent is due. So there's rent reminders that's going on. Like you said, we also do rent reporting, which is essentially we work with a company called Friend Lobby, which does the same thing. How it is that since we have a lot of newcomers working with us, we help them to build credit while they're seekers. So good credit, and it works other ways too. So if they don't do it, it has to affect them. We always tell people who work with us, saying, you want to affect your credit score for $20 or $30, you don't want to pay for a utility or whatever. This is not going to bite you today. It's going to bite you the day that you want to buy a house or a car. Or that's when you understand the problem. And the good thing about it is that majority of the people that we work with, fortunately and unfortunately, it's newcomers and people like that, they are here to start a new life. They want to build a life here. That's why they've made the move from here, and they understand. And it's a matter of educating people about this thing, and that's exactly what we want to do is have these people here, build them, understand the culture, how they're living here is not the same as what is there. Live with us and understand the culture, be a better person, and then move on. That's essentially. And like I said, the homeowners who's working with us or the property managers definitely will help them to get a better rental income from the property. At the same time, we also do tenant ratings. Like I said, it's just a basic rating based on how they pay the payments, how they keep the house clean, how the co-tenants rate them. Based on that, that is essentially, if I'm a person who have no credit score or anything as such right now, if I'm looking to move a different property, this simple rating shows us that how good of a tenant they were. That is just a proof that they can show you, if I might be back on what you're looking for, but I have a job, I have a part-time, I'm a hardworking person, I pay rent on time, and that's enough. And this has helped a lot of tenants that way, and it's been working. So that's why we started working more and more. And another great accomplishment for us is that we had a property which we had different people. For example, there's people from India, Europe, everyone living together. They came from different background, and the homeowner decided the contract of the house ended. And what these guys did is that they all came as different, but we knew that they went and rented another house as a group. now they become a family. That's an achievement for us because that's exactly what we want. How they have coordinated, how to live together from different background. That's essentially is what we want to do. Okay, and since I was here in Real, I just wanted to talk about this as well. We have this new thing that we work with realtors, mortgage agents, property. Our platform is mainly used by homeowners and property managers, but we have also expanding in a way we can work with realtors and agents who essentially works really hard for their clients for rentals. And some of them really are directly involved, are not involved in how the houses they've helped them to buy is performing in terms of rental, have a clear record of what's happening in that houses, how much was the renting potential out of there, is there any maintenance request, how they connected to people within the network. So the client absolutely have a free access, realtor will have a master access, entirely knowing how their houses are doing under their clients. And I can talk more and more, but I don't have much time. I probably will have some questions about it. And that's it for me. That's my contact. We're growing. We're growing fast. We're looking to work with some exciting homeowners, property managers and investors who have the same mission that we have, and this base have a strong belief that this is the opportunity that we can give to Toronto and give back, and how we can promote or work towards the crisis that we're having right now, and promote the idea of co-living. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
So would this be on like the people that are living under one home together will be a one contract or like several contracts?
So everyone has their personal preference on the contracts.
Okay.
We have a auto-generated contract that's within the system. What happens is every single person comes into house, the contract gets regenerated automatically, so they get all into one letter. But whereas some people might prefer to have their own lease agreement, which they can easily upload into as well. So however you want to do it.
Okay.
Are your fees a flat fee, or is it based on a percentage of the rent?
So we have two fees right now. So one is based on the portfolio that you have. Let's say you have about 10 properties, then 1 to 2 properties free. So any homeowners who have 1 to 2 properties, we are completely free to use that. So you have under 10 properties, then you have a particular monthly price. Then 10 to 20 properties, you have a particular price, and then beyond that is a custom price for you. And on top of that, for a tenant, as a tenant finder, what we do is if we completely get the application, like I said, it's an end-to-end system. So we have an entire process of them completing the entire application, their profile, ID verification, everything done within us. And for that, we take a 20% of 1 month rent as a one-time fee. 20% of the 1 month rent. So let's say, for example, $1,000, we take $200 as a one-time fee for the entire process. And let's say if you are a homeowner who's having 1 or 2 houses, except this 20% that you're paying, you're absolutely able to manage your tenants, the entire chat system, maintenance, pictures, photos, everything is done in one place, and it's absolutely free for you.
Yeah. And one other question, if you have, let's say, a co-op living, and you have a 3-bedroom apartment, you have 3 different people renting that particular apartment, are you allowed to get rent from all 3 individually, or does one person have to pay the rent for the apartment?
So essentially, we do rent individually at this point because they are different people at this point, right? So we have credit card payments for rent as well, and this is what helping them to build credit and things like that. So if they want to do interact transfer, that's available too. So all these options are there.
Okay, so individually is allowed legally as well. It's
yeah.
Not, okay. And what if one person does not pay and the other 2 pay? So how does that work?
Well, it's the same problem. Like you can have any tenants in a house and completely say that they're not going to pay rent from tomorrow, right? Mm-hmm. But with this way, you're actually minimizing your risk because you're actually still getting a good amount of rent from other people, and then there might be one bad apple in that. Yeah. But it's always it's also learning. Like there's 3 different people there. So for example, if someone does not do the chores in terms of cleaning the house or keeping the garbage out, all these things that they have done, there's always other people to point out and to remind them. And there's always, we as a software always have a reminder as the in-living app, which tells you are in task for the cleaning of the kitchen today or the garbage set. So it's that's the part that you said. It's a reminder of what they have to do because everyone's busy with their own life, and how the small communication can make a big difference. That's what we're seeing. How I build this is I essentially started doing this in person, and then one by one we build the tech towards. I didn't build the tech and start putting people. We implemented this and see if it's working, and then start towards the tech.
Okay, thank you.
So following this question, if I understand correctly, you sign like different lists with each group that rent the house?
So everyone will go through the terms and policy initially, and then what happens? Each and every person after they're actually coming to a single lease agreement. For them it's a separate, but overall it's coming to a single lease agreement. So system, yes, one agreement.
Okay, so if one tenant is not paying, it's as if you have like a regular lease and you didn't get the.
Oh, so the payment is still done individually, but just the agreement just to show who is living in that, what's the rules apply for all these people living. The agreement wise, it's there, but it's also clearly mentioned that who is responsible for paying that particular. They're not doing the payment as a whole for one house. They're doing individual payments.
So if one tenant out of three, let's say, is not paying the rent,
Only that person is liable.
so you're going through the process of eviction with that one tenant and the other can stay?
Yes. So so far what we're doing is that we're since we have the rent reporting and the things going on, we basically the others are not going through the trouble of all this process. Just we have one bad apple, we actually going against that one person instead of everyone there, because the others are paying rent. We're actually only talking about that particular person who's not paying rent.
But legally, you can evict one person from that house?
Again, eviction is a long shot process that we're talking about. It's not like even if you want to, as a landlord, want to evict someone, you can just evict. Like I said, she said it's an 8 to 10 months process that's going on. We're doing all the measures that we can avoid what eviction is and see if they can pay the rent. That's why, like I said, when you do a rent reporting or things like that, it affects them in good and bad ways too. If they don't do it, they're building a bad rapport. If they do it, they're building a good rapport.
So this is a tenant management software?
Essentially, yes. Yeah.
So you're basically you're creating, if you have a bad tenant, you're trying to turn them around to become a good tenant?
Absolutely.
Is that the purpose of this?
Yes, absolutely.
tool?
Absolutely.
I do have one thing to say. So for the current landlords or to be landlord, this is amazing platform. But something that I would say that they need to be concerned about is that if they want to refinance that home and with the lease agreement and different deposit coming into the account, then they would encounter problems with the mortgage lender. Whereas because the lenders would see this as a student home, if they see different deposit coming in for the home. So I would say for the landlords, they have to talk to like a mortgage individual few months before they want to refinance that home. So like they're going to talk about it to the landlord and say what you need to do in order you don't have any issues when it's a financing, because random deposits, then that's going to be a bit of a
Understood. Yeah.
issue there.
That's just it. There's when you introduce something new, there's always a lot of, because when Airbnb come into play, there was a lot of question mark of what's happening. This is not going to work out. All these things that's coming out, and then that's when a new thing comes in that comes in place.
Yeah.
And that's why we actually wanted to work with the city and through them, and they understand what the mission, that we're not in the idea of putting 20 people in a house and locking them inside a room and calling it as a rooming house. That's not the point. How we can make that, in one of the properties that we had, there was a Toronto fire inspection, and because the backyard had something and the neighbors reported, and when they actually came, when you inspection, they inspect everything, and they were impressed by how well organized the house was, considering it was a 5-bedroom house and 5 people living in there. And they actually complimented how well organized the house was, which is not the case in most of the cases. So that's essentially what we're trying to do, and which is example that I put in front of the city when I presented to them, saying which is it solely makes sense, and this is why the city is interested to see how we can work together and prove this mission. So, and it's a great thing for us to have the authorities to be on our side and prove this mission. And there's a lot of new developments when the bylaws change. There's going to be a lot of changes there, and we're totally aware of that. And we're in a comfortable position to change that, make the changes, and make it in a possible way. Yeah.
So a couple questions. Number one, what areas do you service? Is it just Toronto? Is it the whole GTA? Is it all of Ontario?
At this point, we're in Ontario. Looking into expanding to Vancouver, which is why I was in Vancouver the entire last week, pretty soon, and talks are going on with the Calgary as well.
Okay. And then so you work with tenants as well. So for example, a friend of mine, she's in her 50s, divorced, and she's looking for a place, but to get a place on your own is expensive. And so she's like, Amber, do you know of any places or people who, help, bring like-minded individuals together? So this could be that. So like, would I send her in your direction if that's the case? Like,
Absolutely.
Okay, cool.
Absolutely.
Awesome. That's awesome.
Yep.
Because like, you know, fortunately, unfortunately, co-living is the way of the now. And so I think this, could help a lot of people. So.
Actually, it would be a very good idea to add an option there, like the co-living people are going to be a bit more like-minded in a sense, so that
We are connecting. So
Yeah.
definitely. So let's say you are going to go into one of the houses where these two people, you can actually see who's living there, what their profession is, what kind of people are there, and we're actually working more on how well like-minded they are in terms of their habits, sleeping habits, waking habits, food habits, all these kind of things.
That's great.
So you understand. So because you don't want wrong people to live in a house. That's a chaos, right? That's how we can join together. That's absolutely there. So
But again, do you find there's a lot of moving parts? I mean, people move in and move out, and some people stay a year, some people leave after 6 months, some people stay 5 years. How do you manage all of that?
So it's very simple. One other thing is that it's flexible because when people move out or move in, you don't have to sign a long-term contract here. And people are very much aware that, and we see that even though people...
I'm sorry, so you don't have a lease, like a 1 year?
Yes, we do. So it's up to the landlord to keep however they want. So they can choose there's a minimum requirement or a maximum requirement. But what we see generally is that people usually come in for 6 months and they actually end up extending it more and more. Because we get a reminder saying that you want to extend the lease for another within 60 days, and majority of the people seeing extending it.
On the other hand, even if a lease expires, then legally they're month to month after that, and they can do that forever.
Right. Yeah.
So is that difficult? Like, again, there's a lot of moving parts. So how do you manage that?
So your question was if
you bring like-minded people together, I mean,
right.
do you have a database of people that are looking, or I'm just.
So yeah, I like to tell. I'll tell an example. So the house that I was talking about right now, where it was in Scarborough, and the landlord has given them enough notice saying that we're going to sell the house because we couldn't. And then there was a 60 days or 80 days, actually 90 days notice that landlord gave, and they were okay. And what they did is that they all together rented out. We didn't unfortunately had another house which to support them because we were out of inventory. So they went together and rented another house as a group instead. So that's essentially. And in between, there's usually a house when a homeowner added the house in there. It says how long the house is available. Is it for a year or 6 months? So the tenant who's moving to the property has a clear understanding how long the house is available, and it's clearly said that it's not available past this rate. So they have a full understanding about if the house is not available after that or not.
Great. Thank you so much.
Thank you.